Hi everyone, it's Shaw from STK Markets this morning. I was just having a chat with the Exec Chair Oliver Kleinhempel from EQR on all things tungsten. I just thought we had to jump on the call. Oliver's in Washington. I'm in Southeast Asia at the moment. We're both extremely busy, but this is a Sunday morning catch-up. Oliver, thanks for joining or jumping on the video this morning. It's good to see you again.
Thanks, Sean. Absolutely.
There's a lot happening in the critical metals space at the moment. We've seen a lot of these metals like antimony, gallium have these spectacular runs over the last couple of years, and tungsten in that basket. We're starting to see that happening now. I saw on Friday night, I saw 400 for the first time on the buy-sell spread of the tungsten price. So this keeps going up. And I'm delighted to let investors know you're sitting actually at the moment in Washington, DC.
Yeah, Sean, absolutely. I think people, the market knows that we have not only customers in North America. It's always good to catch up with them as well and discuss exactly these price movements and what are the drivers. And it's not so surprising to us when you see the Chinese basically shutting the Western markets down. And that was one of the reasons coming here. We have other discussions on government side with the Australian embassy. Being very supportive. We had a very closed door discussion with the team on the ground. I think they're making wins with the US administration as well to support the entire sector, Australian sector, to really solve a problem that the US manufacturing industries are facing. And that combined also leads to opportunities when it comes to funding. And I think we've mentioned that we have a live grant application, and certainly it's not a secret that we are in discussions regarding our expansion project at Mount Carbine. So this gives us reason and keeps us extremely busy coming in and out of the US at the moment.
Well, one thing I've looked at just on that expansion and the global expansion of what's happening in tungsten, we all know that the majority of tungsten is produced in China, Russia, and the Western world can't access that tungsten. EQR is the biggest producer outside of that. If you look at its share price, it certainly doesn't reflect that. When you look at its peers, it's almost 1/10 of the valuation of some of your competitors out there. So we do see this tremendous opportunity. But sitting in the US at the moment, where you've got the 130,000 tonnes a year, I think, from memory, and they're looking at increasing 20,000 just for artillery. Where are they going to get that tungsten from, and is that why you're there?
Yeah, you made a good point there, and we had these discussions, you and I, offline. I mean, when you look at the programs that are out there, and again, here in Washington, you meet all the large defense-related end users and programs that they've put out in Europe, but also in the US. We're talking about an addition of 2 million shells. I personally have worked also with defense companies in the past, and have a bit of an understanding. The 155 artillery ammunition is one of the demand drivers for tungsten with the penetrators of, let's say, carrying around 6.5 kilogram per shell, and you see 2 million tons of production capacity added, and this is exactly where you come to the numbers of 15,000 tons additional tungsten demand. This is what the U.S. Army and European defense companies would like to have up and running, latest by end of 2026. And we are sitting with them and discussing supply, and they hardly can't believe actually that there's so little development ongoing in our space. What they nevertheless appreciate, and that kicks doors open, is the fact that we have 2 operating assets, and our project expansion in Mount Carbine is brownfield. We've highlighted that many times. We do have the equipment sitting at site, ready to go, ready to be put up, and within 6 to 8 months, we can deliver additional output. And one number just to emphasize politically, that's always being absorbed fairly quickly when you look at China's statistics and the dependency of the US on Chinese imports. The expansion at Carbine as a project could take out 50% of what the US is currently still importing from China, despite the export restrictions at the moment. But that is a topic that sells, and yeah, as I said, it keeps us very busy, and we just have to get things going now. Kevin is busy this week in Spain, and in parallel he's getting the boots on the ground with the team in Carbine once the funding has been secured, Sean.
Well, that's fantastic. So you're looking at they will provide funding potentially for the expansion. I mean, it is no secret you've been applying for this grant with the geopolitical changes. I mean, did you just mention they're still getting product from China, or is that on contracts that are already in place that will be shut down?
There's a couple of drivers at the moment, and I think we've all seen the articles. There's a wide range of tungsten intermediates, powders, APT powders, carbide that is currently not leaving China. There's certainly stocks held within the supply chain. I believe that these stocks are close to be withdrawn entirely in the coming weeks. And I think Greg Bradshaw in our last conversation has highlighted, if you put an order in today, doesn't matter with a potential Chinese supplier delivering again later in the year, or it's any other European or even within the US, you have a couple of refineries that obviously supply intermediates into the market, but they won't commit delivery before probably the end of the third quarter. That's the information that we have. So everybody has to accept delays in terms of supplies, new supplies. But look, it's extremely dynamic. I mean, you refer to the price, not only outside of China, we see price action, but also within China, right? And we discussed it last time as well. The Chinese are cutting the output quotas. The government is reducing the quotas, the production limits that they set for the industry, because they likewise consider tungsten as a defense critical raw material. And it's in both markets, in and outside of China. It's a situation where I wouldn't be even able to tell you how the market looks like end of the year. We only know that the supply side is a problem. Therefore, our pure focus is really on getting our projects up and running, and let's say to the level that we have expected for. We are very happy with the recent development, and Spain is sitting in at 30,000 MTUs. There's still another 10,000 to go. To be frank, we have educated people about what exactly we are still implementing, and there will be a new slide deck, investor deck coming in the coming days, so that will highlight also further details on that side.
Well, one of the key things as an investor myself, looking at this particular commodity at the moment and looking at antimony, that's just kept going and going and going. It's not like the lithium space or rare earth space where you've got project after project after project that can come in line, and then to have a supply overrun where there's just too much supply. It's not that in tungsten, is it? That there's not all these tungsten mines that are coming online over the next couple of years. It's just really non-existent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we believe that we have a good overview of the market. There's certain Chinese investment in Central Asia. In Kazakhstan, question remains whether that's material that the US, specifically the defense sector, is able to absorb. And there's certain policies, and I would assume already in place since Trump 1.0. And the feeling that I get here from Washington is that the anti-China campaigning and policy is probably getting stricter and stricter. So any investment has to really be executed from Australian, Canadian, or US investors. And again, the pipeline is pretty thin. There are certain projects close to be commissioned, but we see it from our own ramp up, from the learning curve that people have to go through. Matter of the fact is we had so little output in the Western world. There's very limited experts in the market. So let's see how quick these projects come online. But one of the points, maybe just to emphasize that as well, on the probability that EQR gets the support from US agencies, and there's a range of programs without going through them individually. What we have seen already under Title III, that's a very important program, effectively managed by the Department of Defense. And we have just in the last 3 weeks have seen 2 tungsten projects in Canada, both individually received $15 million in grant money. Those projects with that funding will only complete their bankable feasibility studies and effectively come to a point where either it is defined as being economically viable or not. And what we are educating our US counterparts, again, with the support of the embassy and up to the ambassador himself, I had a very good dinner at his residence with his team. What we are emphasizing is that the same amount of money, $15 million, you effectively double the output from Australia with regards to tungsten, and that within 6 months. And I think that's the eye-opener for everybody here on the ground.
I think the only condition on that is that they get first right to buy the tungsten from you. Is that correct? On the extra output?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are linked, as you know, very strong relations with companies here in the US. Elmet Technologies maybe to emphasize that. And that's certainly in the forefront. And as I said in the intro, the demand drivers are defense investments by the US government, and that's a multiple of what the Europeans are investing in that space. We all follow the discussion about NATO spending and how the US is effectively financing more than half of what NATO is spending on defense. So the US market will be the driving force, so it won't be a problem to find customers here, existing customers that we have, and they are all, as I said, have been expressing their concerns in all the meetings that we had. They ask us, how can we accelerate our developments at our projects, and we have a pipeline. It's Carbine, it's Saloro, but also Wolfram Camp, I think, is a very interesting asset. It has been in operation for some years, not so long ago. I do hope that the Australian government, now that the election is over, I think we've all digested that there's expected stability, which I, by the way, also feel very positive for the ongoing negotiations that the ambassador Kevin Rudd has here in the US with the US government. A change in federal government in Australia might have delayed certain things, but look, I think they have it on number one on their agenda, and they want to help us to also get, again, more projects out of the ground within Australia, and I think we are really top seeded on that side.
Thanks, Ollie. That's fantastic. That's a lot of global political tensions there that have arisen to this movement in the tungsten price, and you can see all the major governments in the Western world wanting to secure the tungsten to form up their defence, which is a big thing globally. You've got to be living in a rock if you haven't seen it. It's on every second day, every day. There's articles in all the major publications, and I've seen a lot of articles on tungsten. Obviously, because we're invested in it. We've been following EQR now for several years. Steve Layton, who I've known for about 10 years, he got us interested in it because he was a director. It's always good having knowledge of people who are in the company. We're very familiar with the board changes over the last 6 months in particular, when we came to bring TMG to look at acquiring that. But over the company I saw 2 years ago, 12 months ago, 6 months ago to today, you've completely revamped the management. The commodity is going through the roof. Your Saloro asset has gone beautifully. I mean, that was Oak Tree and some other major players who were there already. They couldn't get that working, but your Chief Technical Officer, Kevin, that's where he flourishes. You've got an extremely competent, capable team. Craig Bradshaw's just joined the team, another 15-year veteran in tungsten. There's been some major changes that were in the quarterly, and the company just keeps growing and growing and growing. Revenue's positive. Is there anything you want to add to the quarterly? Because all we're seeing is this dynamic change. We're keen to see where the company be in 12 months. I'm hoping you're almost looking at paying dividends. And I mean, that's very ambitious. But where the tungsten's going, where you're at, it's certainly, this company is on the move in a very positive trajectory, and the share price hasn't caught up to it yet.
Yes, Sean, absolutely, and I can imagine that certain shareholders are likewise scratching their head. But look, I mean, we are fully focused on executing the strategy that we have set. As I emphasized very often already, we are industrial people. We understand the supply chain. We brought 5 customers to the table, signed $100 million of offtakes, multi-year collaborations. Look at what we have developed with Masan High-Tech, the largest refinery outside of China. There's a lot of technical discussions between the teams. We just had Kevin receiving Masan's CEO, Ashley, in Spain as well, to discuss opportunities and align certain technical parameters that can benefit both sides. We do the same with Elmet. We help them to get the concentrate refined into a quality that suits their needs, in order to support the defense orders that they have received. So I think that's the benefit that we deliver into these partnerships, and that is highly appreciated. And I think that gives us a top spot at the table when larger strategic programs are being discussed between governments and these consumers that we call our customers. Take Elmet again as an example. They are linked into the defense system as a critical supplier. So we enjoy that part of the discussion, but we obviously don't ignore the fact that we have had a couple of hiccups in Carbine. The initial pit 1 wasn't as successful. We have reconciled all the numbers. We took the risk of getting into the lower levels of the initial pit after dewatering it without really putting additional drill programs or laying drill programs out, which would have probably delayed the entire startup by a year. But as we are entering now into phase number 2, and with the RC drilling done in the last 12 months, so we could do that while developing the supply base for our customers. We have extreme confidence that the stripping will turn into something that is delivering probably one of the highest grade ore bodies in the tungsten world globally. And we have to get there. A couple more weeks to go to blast some further sections out of the south wall, and then certainly we can report production numbers as we have seen them in the September quarter last year. And as I said before, a brownfield expansion is less risky, more predictable in a ramp up as compared to going a completely greenfield into a new tungsten mine. And when it comes to Saloro, I think these are now mini steps upward. We have gained 25% quarter on quarter last year. And from here onwards, I guess we still see continuous improvement, but the entire ore body is different. We have relatively constant ore qualities, whereas Carbine, again, once we hit the high grade zones, then we have significant uptick in output. And so, yeah, we're happy we have both assets now at a state and stabilized with the management team fully implemented. There's obviously still an expectation from the market that we are filling the post for our CFO. I can report that that is a matter of days to get the announcement into the market, and I think from there onwards we are really back 100% focusing on implementation.
I think the management team, Oliver, the Craig Bradshaw announcement was just sensational. We spoke with him last Sunday. Here we are again a week later discussing what's happening in Washington. Your management team's firming up, that CFO being added. But you've got your experience at Cronimed, you've got Oaktree's balance sheet strength, you've got a good management team. Oliver, you've listened to the market, you've gone and sourced people. I mean, Craig Bradshaw, 15 years, tungsten experience you've had. I'm not sure how long, Oliver, I've not asked you, but I know you've been at Cronimed for so long and you're now the exec chair. Every time I ask you a question about tungsten, you do it very politely where you educate me. George Chen from TMG, I know he spoke to a few of his shareholders. I've seen buying from the top 60 coming through. That's very supportive of you. So Oaktree come back in December. We're set for a really good run from here. All the pieces seem to be coming together. Nothing happens overnight. Nothing that's worth doing is ever easy. And I think with Mount Carbine and Saloro, you've had two assets which you've had to work very hard on. Saloro was quicker, but Carbine certainly with the drilling, it proves the ore's there. And these, as Craig said and you've said, you've got a 7-year runway, but we can extend that with Wolf and Cairpan, the current mine. So there's a huge amount of upside for investors to get out of this at the moment, and the comparables are just mind-blowing. Yeah, it's very exciting. So I think over the next couple of quarters, we'll definitely see some improvements in the operating revenues, which we've seen cash flow positive starting to happen. And we just want to continue that on. So Oliver, thank you for giving us a call in Washington. It's amazing you've got the ambassadors taking to these fancy dinners where you're talking the nitty-gritty of getting funding from the States. It's what people are looking for. So I think a reset of the balance sheet is just on the not too distant horizon. And grants, they're obviously, if the cost is selling the product, it's not a bad cost if you don't have to pay it back. So it's extremely good for shareholders.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And definitely we'll touch base once we're both back from travel. And again, we keep managing those relationships down here, and likewise getting the work done back in Carbine and Saloro.
Thanks, Oliver. Thanks a lot for your time. I know you're busy, and have a safe flight to Europe to go check out what's happening in Saloro.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.